The morning sun reflected off the polished luxury cars as Maya Richardson drove her 5-year-old sedan into the parking lot of Prestige Motors. She took a deep breath and checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. At 38, her face showed the determination that had carried her through years of building her tech company from scratch. Today was supposed to be special, a small reward for her recent success. Just last week, Maya had closed a $300 million deal, selling her software company that she'd built from nothing. After years of long nights, missed weekends, and sacrificed holidays, she finally had something to show for it. The sale had left her with a personal fortune of over $400 million, though you'd never guess it from her simple jeans, white blouse, and minimal jewelry. Just a car, she reminded herself with a small smile. After everything, I deserved just one nice thing. The showroom of Prestige Motors looked like something from a movie. Gleaming marble floors reflected spotlights that seemed to make each vehicle glow. The air smelled of expensive leather and coffee from the customer waiting area. Men in tailored suits and women in designer outfits were scattered throughout, some running their hands over the smooth curves of sports cars, others chatting with salespeople who laughed a little too loudly at their jokes. Maya stepped through the glass doors and paused, taking in the sight of her dream car in the center of the showroom, a sleek, midnight blue luxury sedan with a price tag that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. Now it represented less than 0.05% of her net worth. The thought made her chuckle. She waited near the entrance, expecting someone to greet her. A minute passed. Then 5. She watched as a couple walked in, the man wearing an expensive watch that caught the light, and were immediately approached by a smiling salesman. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to Prestige Motors. My name is Thomas. How can I make your dreams come true today?" Maya shifted her weight, looking around for another available staff member. 3 salespeople stood at the counter, glancing occasionally in her direction before returning to their conversation. One caught her eye and then quickly looked away. 10 minutes became 15. Maya watched as 2 more customers entered after her and were promptly greeted. She considered walking up to the counter, but something held her back. This was a test, not for her, but for them. And so far, they were failing. Finally, after nearly 20 minutes of being completely ignored, a man with slicked back hair and a name tag reading Bradley Wilson, sales manager, approached her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Did someone help you already?" he asked, his tone suggesting he very much hoped the answer was yes. "No," Maya replied simply. "I've been waiting for almost 20 minutes." Bradley's eyes scanned her quickly, taking in her modest clothes, her natural hair, her lack of flashy accessories. His smile tightened. "Well, we've been quite busy with our priority customers. What exactly were you looking for today? Directions, perhaps?" Maya kept her expression neutral, though she felt a familiar tightness in her chest, the same feeling she'd experienced in countless boardrooms when underestimated. "I'm interested in the new Series 8, she said, nodding toward the midnight blue sedan. "I'd like to test drive it today." Bradley's eyebrows rose slightly, and he let out a small laugh that felt like a slap. "The Series 8 starts at $180,000, he said slowly, as if explaining to a child. "Perhaps I could show you something more accessible? We have a used car division across town that might be more suitable for your budget." A couple nearby glanced over, embarrassment crossing their faces as they realized what was happening. Maya noticed a younger salesman looking uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to another. "I'm quite aware of the price," Maya said, her voice calm despite the heat rising in her neck. "And I'm interested in purchasing it today if the test drive goes well." Bradley's smile turned condescending. "Ma'am, we have a policy about test drives for our premium vehicles. They require serious buyers with verified financing." As he spoke, he gestured to a colleague and stage whispered, "Can you help the Johnsons? I'm just handling this situation." Then turning back to Maya, "Perhaps if you'd like to fill out a credit application, we can see if you qualify for something on the lot." Maya looked at him for a long moment, then reached for her phone. "You know what? I think I need to make a quick call first." Bradley nodded with visible relief, already turning away. "Take your time. I'll be with real customers if you still need me." Maya stepped outside into the sunshine, tapping a number on her phone. If Bradley had bothered to look back, he might have noticed something in her eyes that his other customers never showed. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even hurt. It was opportunity. Maya stepped back into the showroom, her phone call finished. The cool air conditioning was a relief after the heat outside, but the tension in her shoulders remained. Bradley was across the room, laughing loudly with a couple wearing matching designer outfits. He caught Maya's eye, and his smile dropped for a split second before he excused himself. "Still here?" he asked, not bothering to hide his annoyance. His cologne was too strong, making Maya take a small step back. "Yes," she said simply. "I'd still like to see the Series 8. Bradley sighed dramatically, checking his watch. "Look, I'll be straight with you. That car costs more than most people make in 3 years. Our serious buyers usually come in, well, looking the part." His eyes moved over her simple outfit again. "We don't want to waste your time or ours." 2 other salespeople glanced their way, then quickly looked down at their clipboards. A young man at the reception desk seemed to be listening while pretending to type. "I understand completely," Maya said, her voice level. "But I'm still interested in that test drive." Bradley's face hardened. "Ma'am, this isn't that kind of dealership. We don't do joy rides. Our clients have portfolios, not piggy banks." He lowered his voice, leaning in. "The commission on that car would pay my mortgage for 2 months. I can spot a real buyer from across the room." Maya took a deep breath. This wasn't new to her. Throughout her career, she'd been underestimated, talked over, and dismissed. When she started her company, investors would direct questions to her male colleagues even when she was the one pitching. She built her success by staying focused, not by winning every small battle. "I see," she said, pulling out a small business card case from her purse. "Perhaps this might change your perspective." Bradley glanced at the card, then did a double take. It was simple white cardstock with raised black lettering. Maya Richardson, CEO, Richardson Technologies. His expression shifted, but not entirely. Tech startups came and went like seasons. For all he knew, this was some small operation run out of a garage. "Technology, huh? Well, that's nice. But Ms. Richardson, the Series 8 isn't just transportation, it's a statement. Our typical buyer is someone who has truly arrived in life." He gestured toward a gray-haired man being shown a convertible. "Like Mr. Peterson over there. He owns half the real estate downtown." A woman at a nearby desk looked up, her eyes moving between Maya and Bradley with growing concern. "I wouldn't want you to get your hopes up," Bradley continued. "The financing alone requires excellent credit and substantial income verification. Why don't we look at something more suitable? We have a very nice certified pre-owned section." The humiliation was no longer subtle. Several customers were watching now, some with discomfort, others with a hint of smugness that suggested they agreed with Bradley's assessment. "Would it help if I paid cash?" Maya asked quietly. Bradley laughed out loud. "Cash? For a $180,000 car? Sure, if you've got it in your purse right now, I'll get the paper started." The woman at the desk stood up, apparently sensing trouble. "Bradley, maybe I should." "It's fine, Diane," he cut her off, then turned back to Maya. "Look, we're getting busy, and I have appointments with serious clients. The used car center is about 3 miles down on Wilson Avenue. They'll be happy to help you there." He started to turn away, then added almost as an afterthought, "They even have financing for people with challenges." Maya stood perfectly still for a moment. Then she nodded once and opened her phone again. "You know what, Bradley? I think you're right. I should be speaking with management, but not the kind you're thinking of." Bradley rolled his eyes, already walking away. "Knock yourself out. Customer service is on our website." Maya smiled for the first time since entering the dealership. It was a small smile, but it carried the weight of secrets. She dialed a number and waited. "Paul, it's Maya. How quickly can we close the luxury motors deal? Today? Perfect. And one more thing. I'll be visiting the flagship store personally this afternoon. Can you bring the paperwork there?" She ended the call and took one last look at the midnight blue Series 8 gleaming under the showroom lights. By the time Maya stepped back into the showroom, her phone call finished. The cool air conditioning was a relief after the heat outside, but the tension in her shoulders remained. Bradley was across the room, laughing loudly with a couple wearing matching designer outfits. He caught Maya's eye, and his smile dropped for a split second before he excused himself. "Still here?" he asked, not bothering to hide his annoyance. His cologne was too strong, making Maya take a small step back. "Yes," she said simply. "I'd still like to see the Series 8. Bradley sighed dramatically, checking his watch. "Look, I'll be straight with you. That car costs more than most people make in 3 years. Our serious buyers usually come in, well, looking the part." His eyes moved over her simple outfit again. "We don't want to waste your time or ours." 2 other salespeople glanced their way, then quickly looked down at their clipboards. A young man at the reception desk seemed to be listening while pretending to type. "I understand completely," Maya said, her voice level. "But I'm still interested in that test drive." Bradley's face hardened. "Ma'am, this isn't that kind of dealership. We don't do joy rides. Our clients have portfolios, not piggy banks." He lowered his voice, leaning in. "The commission on that car would pay my mortgage for 2 months. I can spot a real buyer from across the room." Maya took a deep breath. This wasn't new to her. Throughout her career, she'd been underestimated, talked over, and dismissed. When she started her company, investors would direct questions to her male colleagues even when she was the one pitching. She'd built her success by staying focused, not by winning every small battle. "I see," she said, pulling out a small business card case from her purse. "Perhaps this might change your perspective." Bradley glanced at the card, then did a double take. It was simple white cardstock with raised black lettering. Maya Richardson, CEO, Richardson Technologies. His expression shifted, but not entirely. Tech startups came and went like seasons. For all he knew, this was some small operation run out of a garage. "Technology, huh? Well, that's nice. But Ms. Richardson, the Series 8 isn't just transportation, it's a statement. Our typical buyer is someone who has truly arrived in life." He gestured toward a gray-haired man being shown a convertible. "Like Mr. Peterson over there. He owns half the real estate downtown." A woman at a nearby desk looked up, her eyes moving between Maya and Bradley with growing concern. "I wouldn't want you to get your hopes up," Bradley continued. "The financing alone requires excellent credit and substantial income verification. Why don't we look at something more suitable? We have a very nice certified pre-owned section." The humiliation was no longer subtle. Several customers were watching now, some with discomfort, others with a hint of smugness that suggested they agreed with Bradley's assessment. "Would it help if I paid cash?" Maya asked quietly. Bradley laughed out loud. "Cash? For a $180,000 car? Sure, if you've got it in your purse right now, I'll get the papers started." The woman at the desk stood up, apparently sensing trouble. "Bradley, maybe I should." "It's fine, Diane," he cut her off, then turned back to Maya. "Look, we're getting busy, and I have appointments with serious clients. The used car center is about 3 miles down on Wilson Avenue. They'll be happy to help you there." He started to turn away, then added almost as an afterthought, "They even have financing for people with challenges." Maya stood perfectly still for a moment. Then she nodded once and opened her phone again. "You know what, Bradley? I think you're right. I should be speaking with management, but not the kind you're thinking of." Bradley rolled his eyes, already walking away. "Knock yourself out. Customer service is on our website." Maya smiled for the first time since entering the dealership. It was a small smile, but it carried the weight of secrets. She dialed a number and waited. "Paul, it's Maya. How quickly can we close the luxury motors deal?" "Today?" "Perfect. And one more thing. I'll be visiting the flagship store personally this afternoon. Can you bring the paperwork there?" She ended the call and took one last look at the midnight blue Series 8 gleaming under the showroom lights. By tomorrow, she wouldn't just be test driving it. She'd own every single car in the building. Row. She wouldn't just be test driving it. She'd own every single car in the building. Maya drove to her favorite coffee shop, a small place tucked between a bookstore and a florist. The owner, Mrs. Chen, smiled when she walked in. "The usual?" she asked, already reaching for a mug. Maya nodded, settling into a corner table with her laptop. As she sipped her coffee, she couldn't help thinking about how different her life was now compared to 10 years ago. Back then, she'd been working out of her tiny apartment, staying up until 3 a.m. coding her logistics software. Her parents, both schoolteachers from a working-class neighborhood, had always emphasized education but worried about her career choice. Technology changes so fast, her father had said. Wouldn't a government job be more secure? But Maya had seen a problem that needed solving. Shipping companies were losing billions each year due to inefficient routing and tracking. Her software had started small, just a better way to organize delivery schedules. Then it grew, adding features that predicted traffic patterns, weather delays, and even driver behavior. Her phone buzzed with a text from Paul, looking at the final paperwork now. Luxury Motors Group has been struggling for years. Their COO seems relieved about the sale. Maya typed back, "Make sure the current management stays on for at least 90 days. I want time to evaluate everyone." She opened her laptop and pulled up an article from Business Weekly from just 3 months ago. There she was on the cover. Maya Richardson revolutionizes global shipping. The photo showed her in her office, standing in front of a wall of monitors. The photographer had tried to get her to pose with her arms crossed, looking stern, but she insisted on a natural smile instead. The article mentioned her humble beginnings, her struggle to be taken seriously in investor meetings, and how she'd proven everyone wrong with the success of her company. What it didn't mention was how many times she'd been mistaken for an assistant in her own office, or how a potential client once asked her to get coffee, assuming she couldn't be the CEO. Those moments had shaped her leadership style. At Richardson Technologies, every employee was treated with respect, from the janitors to the executives. Performance reviews focused on results, not appearances or backgrounds. It was why her company had one of the most diverse workforces in the tech industry. She finished her coffee and checked the time, 2:30 p.m., just enough time to drive back to the dealership. As she paid for her coffee, Mrs. Chen smiled. "Good day today." Maya thought about what was about to happen. It's about to get very interesting. The drive back to Prestige Motors gave her time to think. Was she being petty? Would buying an entire company just to teach one rude salesman a lesson be going too far? But this wasn't about Bradley, not really. It was about changing a culture. Her research on Luxury Motors Group had shown a company stuck in the past, declining sales, poor customer satisfaction scores, and a reputation for catering only to a certain type of client. Their online reviews were filled with comments from potential customers who felt ignored or looked down upon. What had started as a simple portfolio diversification now felt like an opportunity to make real change. Maya had always believed that business could be both profitable and responsible. Now she would have the chance to prove it in an industry known for high-pressure sales tactics and questionable ethics. She pulled into the parking lot of Prestige Motors at exactly 2:58 p.m. A sleek black car was already waiting there, Paul's car. He stepped out, briefcase in hand, and smiled when he saw her. "Ready for this?" he asked. Maya took a deep breath. Through the windows, she could see Bradley talking to a customer. He hadn't noticed her yet. "More ready than he is," she replied, smoothing her simple blouse. She hadn't changed her clothes. She wanted Bradley to recognize her exactly as she was when he dismissed her. Together, they walked toward the entrance. Paul, in his expensive suit, held the door open for her. "After you, boss," he said with a small smile. "You're about to buy a car dealership." The moment Maya stepped back into Prestige Motors, the air felt different. Perhaps it was confidence, or perhaps it was knowing what was about to happen. Paul walked beside her, briefcase in hand, his presence commanding attention in a way that made several salespeople look up from their desks. Bradley was finishing up with a customer, shaking hands and laughing too loudly. When he turned and saw Maya, his smile flickered for just a second before settling into a look of annoyance. "You're back," he said, not bothering to hide his displeasure. His eyes moved to Paul in his tailored suit, then to the briefcase. His tone changed instantly. "And you've brought assistance." Before Maya could respond, the glass door to the manager's office swung open. A tall man in his 50s hurried across the showroom floor, his face a mixture of panic and forced politeness. "Ms. Richardson," he called out, extending his hand. "I'm Robert Taylor, Regional Director for Luxury Motors Group. I just received a rather unexpected call from our corporate office." His handshake was firm, but his palm was sweaty. If you and your associate would like to step into my office, I believe we have some matters to discuss. Bradley's eyes darted between Maya and Robert, confusion replacing his smugness. Mr. Taylor, this woman was just looking at the Series 8. I've already explained that we have financing requirements and… Bradley, Robert cut him off sharply. That will be all for now. Please continue with your other customers. Bradley stood frozen, his mouth slightly open. Diane, who was working at her desk nearby, covered her smile with a hand, pretending to cough. Actually, Maya said calmly, I'd like Bradley to join us for this meeting. It concerns him too. Robert nodded quickly. Of course, whatever you prefer, Ms. Richardson. Bradley, come with us, please. The walk to Robert's office felt longer than it was. Every employee in the showroom watched them pass, whispering to each other. Bradley trailed behind, his earlier confidence evaporating with each step. Robert's office was spacious, with large windows overlooking the lot full of luxury cars. Awards and photos of him shaking hands with celebrities lined the walls. He gestured to the leather chairs in front of his desk. Please, make yourselves comfortable. Can I offer you anything? Water? Coffee? No, thank you, Maya replied, taking a seat. Paul sat beside her, opening his briefcase and removing a folder of documents. Bradley remained standing by the door, looking increasingly uncomfortable. Bradley, sit down please, Robert said, his voice tight. Bradley complied, choosing the chair furthest from Maya. Robert cleared his throat. Ms. Richardson, I've just been informed by our CEO that you're in the process of acquiring Luxury Motors Group. All 16 dealerships. Bradley made a small choking sound. That's correct, Maya said. Paul here is my lawyer and financial advisor. We've been in negotiations with your parent company for several weeks. Paul nodded, sliding the papers across the desk. The final paperwork just needs Ms. Richardson's signature. The transfer of ownership will be effective immediately. Robert looked at the papers, then back at Maya, his expression a mixture of respect and fear. I see. And may I ask what your plans are for the company? For the employees? Maya could feel Bradley's eyes on her, wide with disbelief. She remembered his dismissive tone just hours earlier, the way he'd suggested she try the used car lot for people with challenges. My plans are to make some necessary changes, she said. But I believe in evaluating people based on their performance and attitude, not on assumptions. She turned to look directly at Bradley for the first time since entering the office. Everyone deserves that chance, don't you think? Bradley's face had gone pale. He swallowed hard, nodding without speaking. Excellent, Maya said, turning back to Robert. Then we have a lot to discuss about the future of Prestige Motors and how we'll be changing the way things are done around here. Robert nodded eagerly. Of course, whatever you think is best. You're there. He paused, the reality of the situation finally sinking in fully. Fiona now. Maya picked up the pen Paul had placed on the desk. The signature she was about to write would cost millions, but as she glanced at Bradley's shocked face, she knew some lessons were worth every penny. The pen felt heavy in Maya's hand as she signed the final page of the contract. With that simple motion, she became the owner of Luxury Motors Group and all 16 of its dealerships. Robert's smile was nervous as he shook her hand, his eyes darting occasionally to Bradley, who sat frozen in his chair. I'd like to call a staff meeting, Maya said, handing the pen back to Paul. Everyone in the building, please, in 30 minutes. Robert nodded quickly. Of course, Ms. Richardson. We can use the training room downstairs. I'll make the announcement right away. As Robert hurried out, Bradley finally found his voice. Ms. Richardson, I want to apologize for any misunderstanding earlier. Had I known who you were? Maya held up her hand, stopping him mid-sentence. That's exactly the problem, Bradley. You shouldn't need to know who I am to treat someone with respect. Bradley's face flushed. Of course, you're absolutely right. I just want you to know that I'm not usually. That is, we have a certain clientele and… Save it for the meeting, Paul interrupted, closing his briefcase with a snap. I think everyone should hear what Ms. Richardson has to say. Bradley nodded, looking at the floor as he stood to leave. At the door, he paused. Will there be changes to the staff? Maya looked at him steadily. That depends on whether people can change themselves. Left alone with Paul, Maya let out a long breath. Was this crazy? Buying an entire company because one guy was rude to me? Paul laughed. You were already buying the company. This just moved up the timeline. He glanced at his watch. Besides, from everything we've seen in our research, this place needed new leadership. Their customer satisfaction scores are terrible, and their sales have been dropping for years. Maya nodded, thinking about the reviews she'd read online. So many people had described feeling unwelcome or judged in these showrooms. She wasn't the first to experience what Bradley had shown her, just the first with the power to do something about it. 30 minutes later, Maya stood at the front of the training room, looking out at nearly 40 employees gathered in rows of chairs. Some looked curious, others worried. Bradley sat in the back row, his usual confidence nowhere to be seen. Diane had chosen a seat in the front, smiling encouragingly. Robert cleared his throat. Everyone, I'd like to introduce Ms. Maya Richardson. As of today, she is the new owner of Luxury Motors Group, including Prestige Motors. Ms. Richardson has asked to address you all directly. A murmur ran through the room. A few people exchanged glances or whispered to their neighbors. One young salesman in the second row looked directly at Bradley, then back to Maya, his expression changing from confusion to understanding. Maya took a deep breath. She hadn't prepared a speech, but the words came easily. Good afternoon. First, I want to reassure everyone that your jobs are secure for now. I believe in evaluating people based on their performance, not on snap judgments or first impressions. She paused, letting that sink in, which brings me to why I'm here. She described her experience earlier that day, being ignored for 20 minutes, then being dismissed and humiliated by Bradley. She didn't raise her voice or point fingers, just stated the facts calmly. I was judged the moment I walked through those doors. Not because of my character, my intelligence, or my actual financial situation, but because of how I looked, what I was wearing, and yes, probably because of the color of my skin. Several employees shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others nodded slightly, perhaps having witnessed similar scenes before. I came in today planning to buy one car. Instead, I bought the whole dealership. Not everyone has that option when they're treated unfairly. She moved from behind the podium, making eye contact with different people around the room. Starting tomorrow, things will be different at Prestige Motors. We'll be implementing new policies. Customers will be helped in the order they arrive, regardless of what they're wearing or what car they currently drive. Sales commissions will be based not just on numbers, but on customer satisfaction scores. She saw some worried looks, but also some hopeful ones. Change was always scary, but necessary. I don't want to just sell cars. I want to change how we sell them. I want Prestige Motors to be a place where everyone feels valued, where assumptions aren't made, and where excellent service isn't reserved for certain types of people. Her eyes found Bradley in the back row. He met her gaze for a moment, then looked down. Everyone deserves a second chance, including those who may not have offered that same grace to others. 6 months later, Maya parked her midnight blue Series 8 in front of Prestige Motors and smiled at the changes visible even from outside. The new sign above the entrance now read Prestige Motors, luxury for everyone, and the windows displayed photos of diverse customers with their new cars, each sharing their story. Inside, the transformation was even more striking. Gone were the intimidating silent salespeople in dark suits. Instead, staff wore approachable business casual attire with name tags that included languages spoken. A digital screen near the entrance displayed a simple queue system showing who was next to be helped, regardless of what they were wearing or driving. Good morning, Ms. Richardson, called the receptionist. The quarterly meeting is set up in the conference room whenever you're ready. Maya nodded, taking a moment to observe the showroom. A young salesperson was helping an elderly couple examine a luxury SUV, listening carefully to their questions. Near the coffee area, a woman in work clothes was discussing financing options with another team member. The atmosphere felt entirely different, professional but welcoming, exclusive but not exclusionary. In the conference room, the management team was already gathered, including Robert and, surprisingly, Bradley. After that first day, Maya had given Bradley a choice: leave with a generous severance package or stay and participate in the company's transformation. To everyone's surprise, he had chosen to stay. Let's see those numbers, Maya said as she took her seat at the head of the table. Robert couldn't hide his smile as he distributed the reports. Sales are up 34% compared to this time last year. Customer satisfaction scores have increased from 3.2 to 4.8 out of 5 across all 16 dealerships. Maya flipped through the report, noting the dramatic improvements. And what about our community engagement initiatives? Diane, who had been promoted to Community Outreach Director, spoke up. The first-time car buyer workshops are consistently full. We've helped over 200 people learn about financing, insurance, and maintenance. Our partnership with the community college's automotive program has placed 12 students in apprenticeships across our service departments. Maya nodded, genuinely pleased. When she'd bought Luxury Motors Group, it had been partly out of principle, partly out of business sense. But the results had exceeded even her expectations. Bradley, how's the new training program going? She asked. All eyes turned to Bradley, who had been unusually quiet. In the months since Maya had taken over, he'd undergone a remarkable transformation of his own. Initially resistant, he'd gradually embraced the changes after seeing the positive results. It's going well, he replied, sitting up straighter. We've now trained all sales staff across the 16 locations on unconscious bias and inclusive customer service. The role-playing exercises were particularly effective. What he didn't say, but everyone knew, was that those exercises had forced him to experience what it felt like to be ignored, dismissed, or talked down to, just as he had done to Maya and countless others. And the new Think Twice policy? Maya asked. Bradley nodded. Every employee has to ask themselves 2 questions before interacting with a customer. Would I treat everyone this way? And what assumptions am I making? It's becoming second nature for most of the team. After the meeting, Maya found herself alone with Bradley as they walked toward the showroom. The awkwardness between them had faded over months of working together, replaced by a cautious professional respect. I need to thank you, Bradley said suddenly, stopping by the window overlooking the lot. For not firing me, Maya asked with a small smile. For teaching me instead of punishing me, he replied seriously. I've worked in car sales for 20 years, and I never questioned how we did things or who we left out. He hesitated. My own daughter came in last week. She's in college now. She brought her roommate who was looking for a car. If this had happened last year, I probably wouldn't have given them the time of day. 2 young women in student clothes. He shook his head. I would have missed out on a sale, but more importantly, I would have made my own daughter feel unwelcome. Maya nodded, understanding the deeper change that had occurred. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from our most uncomfortable moments. Outside, a woman in a factory uniform walked hesitantly toward the entrance, clearly intimidated by the luxury showroom. Through the glass, Maya and Bradley watched as Diane immediately approached her with a warm smile and an extended hand. Your legacy isn't just about changing a company, Bradley said quietly. It's about changing all of us. Maya smiled, watching as the woman's shoulders relaxed, her hesitation turning to engagement as Diane guided her toward the cars. That's the only kind of legacy worth having.